everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mark Sclair podcast. Over the course of the podcast that I've been doing, I've been documenting my journey. I've been interviewing key people which can help you move forward with your career. But another part to this is I feel the huge importance of salespeople listening to their phone calls and their presentations. So I ask them before we do this, but on the show, I bring on people where we break down their phone calls from myself and them listening to it, and then we review it afterwards. As I've said, it's so important for you to listen to your phone call. You won't believe what things you thought you didn't say, but did say, and vice versa. Now, on the show today, I actually have one of my old colleagues that I used to work with a number of years ago, and he's somebody which I feel has great presentation skills, and he's able to really understand the client's needs. And also as well, I have to give my hats off to him because he's probably one of the hardest workers that I've ever worked with or had working in the team. There was nobody that was in earlier or left later, and he definitely put all the hours in that their work demanded of him. So I always appreciate him for that, and I respect him for that. But what we're here today for is we're going to listen. We're going to break down one of his phone calls. We've actually already listened to the call, and we're going to go through this now. So I'm going to introduce him in. His name is Khalid. Do you want to say hello, Khalid? Come onto the camera.
Hey, Mark.
How are you?
Catch up with you.
Good. Thank you.
Good, all good.
Now, before we start with this, I'm going to give a little bit of context because you've done a phone call with a client. And you've also not just found out about the client, you've actually done a presentation with the data analysis tool which you guys offer. Now, what I really like about the way the business is structured is that your focus is really to do these demonstrations and then to close the deals. You're not really there to do lead generation, which really is nicely broken down into a person who's actually there to lead generate. And he does a great job with that. So he books the meetings for you, he qualifies the clients, and then you're there to present to them. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So that's the structure that we work on. So if he finds the leads for us, then sends it to us so that we can present, and from there go on with closing the deal.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, that's great. I really like that structure because I say this, like, I think time is wasted and energy is wasted. And really, like, the amount of money which is being spent is wasted on somebody that is a closer. You've got people which are openers, and you've got people which are closers, and the person that's opening up all these meetings for you is great. I mean, I know the level of meetings that they book for you day in, day out, and it's definitely high level. So that's great to see.
That is true. That's very true. Actually, having said that, you are quite right. I do appreciate the way we have the structure in our company, wherein we get these leads in, qualified already, and we can focus our energy on doing the presentations and closing these deals. Now, you know me for so long now, and you know that I myself am very active. So I'm always also looking for clients out there, which I believe is a basis for success for any salesperson out there, not just to rely on incoming leads, but also to hunt. After all, we are hunters. So that's the main reason of success, or the key to success, really.
Yeah, no, I like that as well. Like, definitely you shouldn't rely on a company to provide you with leads, but it's nice to have that structure there where everyone knows what they're meant to be doing, and it's not so pushed upon you that you need to be getting these leads in, and really you need to be closing deals as well. So as I said, structure's great. It's something which I've seen in the past, and it's definitely worked. So hats off to the structure in the business. So what we're here today for is to look at your phone call, which you did with a client. And as we said, the coordinator, he booked the meeting, he was able to qualify the lead and to make sure that what you're offering is actually going to be of benefit to them. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the company that you're at and what type of sales it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So we provide a business development tool that helps companies find opportunities across various markets in a specific continent. So in the fact that, so you get to see the opportunities, you get to see the people behind those opportunities. And we add into that an analysis tool as well that helps you to understand these opportunities, the people that are working, for example, in these companies, their connections, etc. So it's primarily a business development tool, but it's also a knowledge base as well as an analytical tool that assists companies with understanding the market, basing their strategy, their KPIs. There's a lot of functionality within the system that we provide. So I'd say and that actually allows us the capability to target multiple clients across a variety of sectors on a global basis as well.
Yeah, nice. I've seen behind the curtain, so I know how good the data is. I know how good the analysis is, and I know the value of something like this because I've sold and managed that type of product before in the past. So I definitely see the value in the service. So let's get down to this then. So
Sure.
you've listened to your phone call, yeah, which was the demo online presentation, yes?
Yes, correct.
When was the last time you listened to your phone call, apart from this one now?
Yeah. 5 years ago, at least. It's been a while.
5 years,
And I
yeah?
know 5 years ago. It's been a while since I know. I mean, we used to do this back in my old company 5 years ago. I know how effective it is. But yeah, that was the last time I actually listened to a call, aside from this one that I just did, and it's quite fascinating. I remembered again how effective a tactic it is to listen to these calls and take your notes, and from there you hone your next calls and next presentation and demos, etc. Yeah, it
Do
was a
you
good
think
exercise.
this will be something you'll be making part of a weekly routine or a bi-weekly routine?
Funny you should mention this. After I listened to that call, actually, I started recording all my subsequent calls, and I started listening to them
Awesome.
as well because yeah. So even when you mentioned it to me to do it again, if you remember, I was a bit reluctant because we are so busy with all of the meetings and the presentations that we do.
Yeah.
But I did do it, and after that, I remembered how important it is really because it gives you a different perspective. You're not in the heat of the moment with the client, and you listen to the talking, the banter back and forth, and you take your notes from that. And I managed to
Nice.
actually apply and improve my sales process. So from the time I listened to the call to today, I wager I've improved my presentation and closing skills I mean, on top of what I have by again
Yeah.
15-20% at least, just by honing those key points that I
Yeah.
noted when listening to the call. So definitely,
And
there's a great value in that.
what's nice as well is that it's not so much new stuff because it's 10-15% which you're adding, but it's skills which you already had. But because we're always trying to keep so busy and learn new stuff, we kind of
Yes.
forget to apply certain things at certain times because we've learned this new thing. So it's always been there, but it's kind of listening to that phone call which really makes you realize, oh, I didn't say that, or why did I put that, or actually that wasn't that bad.
Yes, or even I can't believe I said that. That did happen as well during the
Yeah.
phone call. So I completely agree with you there. Yes.
Well, let's get into this then, because I'm sure there definitely are a few I can't believe I said that moments.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us like the structure which you usually do? Because this is an online
Yeah.
presentation. Do you want to break us through like the process that you go through with that? Yeah.
So the series of questions is designed to understand the client's requirements, and from there understand how we can add value to them. Once the needs analysis is done, also a key point about needs analysis is that if there are any objections straight away, you can try to handle them during the needs analysis part before you go into the demonstration. Once that's done, we then jump into the demonstration, wherein now there in the demonstration, it depends really on, for example, how many people are attending the actual demonstration itself, the time frame that you have. There are certain cases where a client will tell you, look, I only have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and you need to accommodate. And you need to accommodate both the entire sales, the entire process actually, from beginning with the needs analysis and the demo until the closing. So based on that, you would then do the demonstration while either taking questions from the client or waiting until you finish the presentation and then you take their questions. That's useful if there's a large number of people. Otherwise, it does turn into a bit of a mess with people asking questions left and right. Once you're done with that, we then go into the closing/negotiation part, wherein based on the needs analysis, we have identified the client's requirements, the package that is best suited for them. And from there, we go into pricing negotiation. If, of course, that will depend whether the decision maker is on the call, whether there is a process to be followed. So that would be just a quick overview and brief on how the sales process would run. So these would be I would say the four key pillars, which would be the introduction, needs analysis, presentation, and from there, negotiation, closing, which can be bundled together or separated, depending on who you're talking to and the people during the demo as well, and other factors.
Okay. So from this call, I think one thing which most people struggle with actually is controlling the flow, and also like when people jump in. So what would you, there was only one person this time, but what would you normally do when there's multiple people trying to ask questions and you're trying to continue with your presentation? What would you normally do?
Yeah, so when it's one person, it's easier to handle and manage. Obviously, it's one person, so it can even turn into a conversation, which is always great to break the ice with the client. When it's multiple people jumping in, you really need to start listening properly and answering every question before you move on to the next one. So I've even had cases where people jump in with questions at the same time, which can be a bit rude and disorienting. But the best way would be to, again, answer that question and answer the second question as well, and making sure that all questions are either answered or maybe during the demo where you tell them, well, this I get, but let me show you how we can help you with that.
Okay, that's interesting because, I mean, it's like, all right, do you answer it on the spot or do you say to the person?
Depends on the question.
Yeah.
Depends on the question.
Yeah, I'll come. Yeah. It's
Sometimes
annoying.
It's better to show.
Yeah, it's knocking you off your flow. Yeah. Okay, so with this now, what would you say has been the biggest things that you've noticed with this phone call? Like people that are listening to this, they haven't heard it. So if you kind of want to go into a little bit of detail on each thing, but the main points which you feel that are kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
Sure. Well, where to start? So some of the key points I noted was, and I was surprised by this as well, and this probably comes from the fact that I've done so many of these. So you do start getting comfortable with these meetings, and because of that, you might start taking certain liberties, right? So I noted, for example, certain points, a lot of points where I did interrupt the client. As you know, and this is a key point in sales, is that you should always be the one listening rather than interrupting and asking questions. So I noted a few points where I did that when I shouldn't have done that, and simply I should have let the client talk until the end, and then jumped in with any extra questions that I had or comments to make. So that was one part. I also noted that I asked a few leading questions. It's never a good idea to ask leading questions because when you're trying to do a sale, when you're in a presentation, this can lead to multiple problems. For example, let's say, how do we place this? You could open a whole can of worms while you're talking to a client, and you didn't want to do that. You have a structure to follow, for example. Or you could take them in a way wherein they start asking additional questions that you might not be equipped to handle, or maybe it's too early in the call, or perhaps you need a decision maker to attend the call with you. So leading questions overall, I think I asked a few more than than necessary.
Give me an example.
So a good example of this. So for example, I wrote it actually down here. I took a whole bunch of notes. 1 second.
Good.
Just find it for you. Yeah.
Good man.
So a question that I asked, which is what I was actually ending the needs analysis with, was, so when would you be looking to start your membership with us? Would it be this year or next year? I think I should have said that. Quite a straightforward question. When are you looking to start your membership? To establish the urgency. And this is mainly for my forecasting as well. So that helps me to understand, are you looking to start this right now? Is it urgent? Is it going to be next month, next year? You get my point, right? And when you ask that to people, they're like, yeah, we'll see, maybe next year. Just for today, I'm exploring. So you get that. That's an example of a question, a leading question.
Was this at the end of the presentation?
Of the needs analysis, yes.
Of the needs analysis. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Other key points, well, the rest of it has to do with during the presentation as well. Some words I used that I didn't like. For example, I used the word to educate you. I think that might be a bit too condescending for some clients, depending on who you're speaking to. And then there were some key points wherein there were certain areas of the service that I should have shown, but I showed not at the moment when it was needed, when the question was asked, but later on, wherein the key when you're doing a demo is if a question is asked or an objection, you should handle that straight away. But I rather left it till later on, wherein it could have been that the client's already forgotten about it, or I've answered it in a way and it's still on the table, it's not gone, but I should have clarified that straight away before moving it. So these are some of the key points I had there that I noted in my conversation.
That's it.
Yeah, I can go up a lot more.
Let's hear a couple more. Let's hear a couple more.
Sure, no problem at all. So let's go then into presentation specifics, right?
Okay.
So while I was doing the actual demo, and without going into too many specifics. So, when you're showing the clients around the website, around the service that you're doing, and then I ended up perhaps showing them areas that were not relevant to them, right? Now you're showcasing the platform, and this is another problem that comes from when you have a structured approach to a demonstration meeting. So you learn that I need to go from A to Z, right? But there are certain cases, and actually I would say majority of the cases, where you don't need to do that. So you could, for example, go from T to U, for example, or maybe you need to do it in reverse. Start from the end and then go to the front. And I think I've done a bit too much of that, in that I took him to a whole structured approach rather than handling his direct requirements. That was one. Let's see what else was there. At the end of it as well, when we were doing the negotiation and closing, I noted that I wasn't being a bit clear on the packaging and how they would go ahead. And there were certain questions that he asked which I didn't handle the right way, specifically with number of, let's say, again, number of members with us, specifically with which package would be most suitable for them. And I should have those answers. So typically, when you've done everything right, you can straight away at the end of it recommend to the client the package that they want. So you would say, based on our conversation and your requirements, I believe this is the package that you need, right? In this case, I kind of went into a whole, this is what we have. Yeah, when the ideal way is to say, like, this is what you need. And then if the client asks you, well, are there any other options? Then you say, sure, this is what we have. And we can do this or that, for example, right? So yeah, those are two other key pointers that I noted. The other ones are more specific into the whole service itself. Things, for example, clicks here and there that, that's it from my side. And you listen to the call as well. Maybe you have some comments I'd love to listen to.
My list is probably longer than yours. No, I think, let me start first of all by saying, I think your navigation of the website is great. I hate people that present and they I think this is right over here. I think this is okay. You knew exactly where to go. You knew where all the stuff was. So it wasn't like the blind leading the blind. And when he did ask you, like, what does this do? What does that do? You were more than capable enough to answer the question, which is great. And I think that helps with doing hundreds of presentations, that's and that's what you've done over the last few months. I mean, you guys have not rested at all. The great thing about being online is that you can do these Zoom calls with clients, and you've been able to do that. So that's very, very good. And I think as well, like what I liked, he was very interested. Like he was asking a lot of questions, and you were able to answer majority of them. Yeah, a couple of things you didn't answer right, but I don't think he, apart from the packages at the end, I don't think he was that confused. I think you were able to answer whatever questions which he had, really. So very well done with that. And again, like your level of understanding of the projects is very good as well. Like you're a smart guy, so, and that's what you need to be with this data, really. You can't be a typical salesperson that can just smooth their way through. You need to understand about the project level, their roles on the project. And that comes from asking questions, but then understanding the answers to those questions as well, or to their responses. So those are all the good things, and a few others, but we haven't got enough time. As I said, your work ethic is great. So let's now get into some stuff here. So one thing which I thought, and it might help when it comes to the negotiation after, was that he said that they said to do oil and gas and petrochemicals,
Yeah.
And then they mentioned you said, oh, what about infrastructure and construction? Yeah. They said that's another subsidiary. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. There was no mention of, would you be looking to join that together? Is this something you feel that the other people would use? You know, and again, it could be a completely separate part of the business. So there's another lead for you. Afterwards, who should I speak to about that, about construction? Do they need a presentation of it?
Yeah.
You know, like,
it's funny you should mention that actually. This is one thing I learned. I did forget to mention that. That's actually a good point. And I'm happy I listened to the call because I had a meeting on Thursday in Abu Dhabi with a major client who has, again, about 27 companies under their arm.
awesome.
And I had learned from that call. So the first thing I did was, who else can benefit from this in your company?
Yeah.
And we're working on that now. Hopefully it will be a major deal. But you're absolutely right. It's a question that I should have asked and I neglected to ask. Yes, that's true.
Nice. So I think you definitely understood as well that it's the presentation and the way you structure it. It's not a one size fits all. You have to cater to what their needs are. Yeah. And I felt that he wasn't really looking so much for project data. I felt he was looking for more analysis. Yeah. So
that's very true.
Yeah, and so when you've kind of gone into this kind of project and drilled down, and I think they do need context, don't get me wrong, but this guy, they're in investigation and study stage at the moment.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so they want to know, right, are we going to go into this sector? Are we going to go into this country? And it's good that you asked about, you know, about going into Africa. You know, when are you looking to go into Africa? And he's put like, on next year. But there's other questions which you can ask along that way, like, you know, have you found difficulty with that? Have you done a market report yet? Why is it now you're going into Africa? Are you still going to focus on Saudi? Has Saudi now gone away? Why has Saudi gone away?
And why Africa in general now, out of all the,
exactly. But that all came from that guy. You asking one question, and this is what we spoke about last week. The questions that you're asking them in a way that is regimented, and it's great. You've got the question. We've spoken about it. It's great. You've got the questions written down, and that's there. But that should just be there for you to not lose track. Your main job is to listen to the client, but I think you're kind of trying to go line by line, and then you go, okay, and you don't really delve into it more.
That is very, the first note I have here from that call was that I should have dug more into their activities and why.
Yeah.
So why is a very important question that, ever since that call, I've been asking a lot more of, and you uncover a lot of details that you wouldn't know. The clients wouldn't tell you, because they're involved in the conversation with you. And they might neglect to, or for them, it's a matter of fact. But unless you ask, you are not going to know. Yeah. And that question, why, I can tell you, again, from experience, it opens up doors that you would not have dreamed of.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, very important question, why. A very powerful question as well.
What's interesting, though? The word why can come across a little bit aggressive. Like, why? Why is that? Like,
how you use it, sure, of course.
So you can say it like, can you tell me more about that?
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that? Or so there's two words. You can say what, or you can say how. Yeah. What is it that's made you focus that way? How comes you've now gone in that direction? Whereas like why is kind of, it sounds a bit silly, but it comes across quite aggressive. But as you've already picked up on, there's words which you've used, which might have come across like a bit condescending with the person.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the number one phrase that you kept on saying again and again and again and again?
The number one phrase. Okay. Right. There's too many of them actually in my notes, right? So I always say a lot of, for example, we mainly provide, and I think that's not a good word to use, mainly provide, which limits our system's capabilities and what we do. Another word that I use a lot is think. I think that, I use that a lot as well, think, or those would be sort of my two keywords. But I'm sure you may have picked up on this better than me. You're always good at picking these things up in a phone call, because for me, it's normal.
There's
So you
one
tell me
word.
which
There's
word.
one.
Yeah.
It's actually two words, and it's of
Is it? Oh,
course.
yeah. Okay.
Of
Of course, I
course.
use it.
Of
Of course.
course. Well,
Yes.
what do you mean, of course? Like I've asked the question. No, it's not of course. You know, you're assuming that the guy kind of gets it anyway, and like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course, like uh, oh, of course, what was it? Nigeria. Nigeria is a dangerous country, or there was other parts of that as well. It's like, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Again, it's a little stopgap. It gives you that one little set, half a second to think of kind of what you want to say.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's best just to pause and then boom, go for it. And
Or
that
sometimes
comes.
just be silent. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I've learned as well the power of silence. And this is something I've been applying, which is you're very right. Of course, it's something I use a lot. Very good, which actually annoys some of my team members how I say very good a lot.
Yeah,
But so I've learned recently that silence is actually a very good method in this. When you ask a question, you get the answer. Just be quiet for a bit. That's a second, and go into your next question.
yeah.
There's power in silence as well. So yeah, I do agree with you there. So we got, of course,
I'd say that
very
was the
good.
main one.
Mainly,
I'd say that was
that
the
was the
main
main
one.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one that really stuck out to me. But
Mm.
if we delve into this a little bit more now, I would say that the what was it? The so all of the benefits of the website, like the researcher and the webinars and a few
Yes.
other things, you kind of mentioned it when it was kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, we have this
Mm.
researcher tool, and oh, by
Exactly.
the way, we have these webinars, and that's the real value there, like the
Yes.
researcher. And I would even go as far to say, like, I think we can be clear here that Africa, the information is hard to come by. Is that correct? And they go, yes. And we go, well, we're not here to say we're perfect. We have this part of the website, which if at any point you want to question the information, you can contact our researcher. This is part of our premium subscription. And it's the part that I love the most because we're able to get
Yeah.
the information for you before anyone else can.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah. But
Yeah. No, I completely agree with
you
you there.
see my enthusiasm, like, I love it so much. Even from your presentation, like, I'm buzzing from it. I've not seen the
Yeah.
back end before. I can see it, like the navigation of it, the filtering, the front page, like, it's great. I love it. It's the
Yeah.
enthusiasm which I have for it. But yeah, so it's that transference of belief that we've spoken about, that which
Yes.
is so important. And because you're just being quite blasé about it, it's not really driving it home to the person.
Yeah. No, I do
Yeah,
agree with you. See, this is one of the drawbacks of doing, a lot of meetings back to back.
yeah,
For you, it becomes, as a matter of fact, and of course, we know the value add. I said, of course, again, but
yeah,
we know the value add, and that is the fact that you can ask for questions and get them on demand. That is definitely the best value add of the entire service, hands down. But then when you keep doing these demonstrations back to back, it becomes a bit as a matter of fact for you,
yeah,
especially if you're the one doing it. So yes, this is something that we do, and it's there, and you expect people to get that. You're absolutely right. It's necessary to hammer that point home. The fact that we can get that, and how difficult is it to get information out of Africa? You're absolutely right. Anyone who's tried to get information in Africa, and this is actually number one requirement when people come to us, is how difficult it is to get information out of it.
yeah.
And that is what we do. And you are, yeah, I mean, emphasizing that all the time is something that, I'm applying now to all of my calls. People might not get it, they might look at it as a matter of fact, but it is the key. It is the value add to the system. So, yeah, agree with you there.
Yeah. Even with the questions that you asked originally as well, like when they said, like, we've done Saudi for the last 3-4 decades, like that's who we are, that's what we're known for, type of thing. I would have been like, okay, well, when we start doing Saudi, then we'll be coming to you for information. Is that okay? You make a little bit of a joke of it, because otherwise you're just
True,
kind of moving on
true.
to the next thing. Like, you're acknowledging how good they are at that.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So we'll go over a couple of more things here. As I said, I've got quite a few, but I think these are going to be the key pointers. When you mentioned the price, which
Yes.
was X amount, you
Yeah.
said the word cost. this is going to cost you X amount. And it
Yes.
sounds like a small thing, but you don't want someone thinking it's going to cost them something.
Yeah.
A cost is a negative. If cost is taking money out of your pocket, but the price is X amount. And it's this little thing, yeah. You know, it's like the educated thing as well. Yeah, it's just these little words that put this thing into their head. They're like, I don't like cost. This is going to cost me something,
Sure.
and actually, I don't really want it now.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. It's a good point. There are other words I use as well sometimes. So price, that's something I'll be adding now to my vocabulary. Thanks to that. But also other words that I use is, you would be investing that amount of money.
Very good. Yeah,
So
your
I find,
investment
yeah,
will be X amount.
that's usually my preferred way of saying it. I'm not sure why. Again, see, you listen to your call and you
Yeah.
think, why the hell did I say? Why did I say that?
Yeah.
You know,
No,
that's
it's
the
good.
benefit of listening to these calls. Yeah. Sure.
So when you went through the pricing with him,
Yeah.
you didn't bring up the packages on the screen.
No, I didn't. No, I
No.
didn't. That's another thing as well. Because usually the way I do it is I send them an email later
Okay.
on with this described. But it's a very good point is that you need, if you have it open in front of them, you can show it to them while explaining at the same time.
Yeah.
This is a benefit that they don't get when you later on send them an email, which they might check end of the day or next day,
Yeah.
and they have forgotten about it. So
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. And this is why I've actually now created a PDF with those packages
Yeah.
after every meeting at the end of it. Of course, if it's a clear cut where I know that's the package and the question isn't asked, that's it. You know, that's the package, and that we don't go into further discussion. But for clients who ask, so what packages do you have, or what are the different various memberships that you have? The easiest thing to do is to pull that up and show it to them. And like I said, showing is better than telling. What's even better is showing and telling at the same time. It's in front of you. There you go, and I'm going and showing it to you. So yeah.
Yeah, he's
That's
listening. Like he can only hear it at that time. He can't see it, and
Yes.
seeing is believing.
It gets even worse when you are telling them and they start taking notes as well.
Yeah.
So they're doing multiple things and they might even not write down. They just write down the cost, for example.
Yeah.
Or how much it costs without what do you get with it, which I'm explaining to you as we go, but they just write the number down. So yeah, completely agree.
And then they look at that number at the end of the day, and that's the last thing they remember without
Exactly,
any of
that's
the
the
bonus
thing
stuff. Yeah.
That's the only thing they remember. Yeah.
He's asking for cost payment. Yeah. Okay. No, there are. It's just so interesting because it brings back so many memories. Oh, okay. So little things like this, like you did a search and you looked at the amount of projects and the amount of value.
Yeah.
And it was a substantial amount. Yeah.
Yes.
But you were quite blasé about it. And then
I didn't stress about it too much. Yes. I actually have
and then
everything here.
I would ask him, like, did you think there was this many projects, this much value there?
Yeah.
Has your research seen that this has come into it?
Yeah.
Again, like it's not like a regimented question sheet. It's kind of like, okay, this is the search result. Did you think this was going to be it? Do you see the opportunities here?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. That's something that I should be doing a lot more of, which is not just showing, look, this is the X amount of projects we have and the value, but did you know about this? Or, for example, what do you think about this? Can you see the value of opportunities there? What would this mean for you as a company, having X amount of projects to go after or companies to go after?
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to having a more of a, rather than a regimented structure where you follow questions, also having a conversation with the client. Not just following those questions per se, but branching out if needed. And like you mentioned, to have it all mentioned, written down as your base so that you can refer back to. Yeah,
I
another
think
good point.
we'll touch on one last point. And this was where he said to you about the, what are your thoughts on the risk of going into Africa?
Yes, I have a whole section written on that.
Yeah, and what I found quite interesting, or what I would have mentioned, was that people. He said, "Oh, so Africa's seen as a risky country, or risky continent, or risky region, whatever." Well, people see Saudi as a risky country, but you guys have been successful there, yes? So what was your recipe for Saudi? What did you do there? I would have kind of turned it back on him and kind of been like, what did you do? I'd like to know more about that. Because you kind of showed him the research stuff anyway.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a very good point. It's a very good point as well. And I actually have a whole section here written on the when we talked about the risk part. It's actually a very common question and a very common concern when you're looking to do business in Africa. By nature, it's risky.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people looking to work there, already working there, always have their concerns about the risk factor of each country. So I did show him the analysis part that would help mitigate those risks. But what I didn't do is, like you mentioned, delve into a conversation there.
Yeah.
Okay, so exactly, what are you doing in Saudi? Because it's risky in Saudi as well. You know, again, the same risks that are in Africa could be in Saudi, could be anywhere in the world. Really. The word business itself is linked with the word risk. Going into a business is risky. That's a matter of fact of doing business. So again, you're right there. I should have done a lot more digging into that. What is the actual, when you say risk as well, what type of risk are we talking about here? Because he kept it general as well, right? He was just saying it's risky doing business, but what kind of risk are we talking about here? Are we talking safety personnel? Are we talking financial risk? What type of risk are we talking? Health risk? Are we talking corruption? Are we talking, military conflict, war zones? What type of risk? And then from there, that's a whole dimension by itself for each and every one of those. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Because what's really good here as well is like this membership or subscription they're going to take on, it could get them to go into the region, but it could also get them not to go into the region. So
yeah.
Which, okay, they may never use that website again, but they may have saved millions of dollars because they spent the money on a subscription to do the analysis reports. Yes. So either way, they're going to be saving. They're either going to be going into a business, going into a region and uncovering opportunities, or doing a risk analysis and realizing actually this isn't for us and going back to Saudi.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you can even utilize it because it's a big continent, right? When we're talking about Africa.
Yeah.
Companies find it really useful to evaluate which countries do we start off with, which countries do we stay away from, which countries do we prioritize in order, because we have all of that data. So you're absolutely right there again, because they would use it for their strategic purposes. And quite right, rather than spending millions, the membership might have saved them millions. That's very true.
Yeah. All right. So Khalid, there was a reason why I had you on this call, because you're one of these people which will go into this and you'll listen to it and you'll take notes. So I really appreciate you doing that. And even though, it was my extra time to listen to it, I did it because I knew you'd put in the same amount of effort. So I really appreciate it. I really hope you continue to listen to the phone calls. I'm going to be seeing a lot more of you. I will be seeing a lot more of you, but it's not me holding you accountable to anything. I just hope which you'll say, look, even if it's one call a week, that's still a lot more than what you've done the last 5 years. That's 50 more listens a year rather than 0 listens a year.
I completely agree with you there. And I also want to really thank you for reminding me of this, something we used to do, like I mentioned, 5 years ago, a lot more. So I really appreciate that you reminded me of that. And it's definitely a good exercise that I will be making a regular habit of, and recommending it as well to my other colleagues in the sales team. And like you mentioned, we'll be in touch. I'm going to look forward to more of these conversations because again, no matter what you do, you listen to your call, you have your own notes, but then you have the other person, yourself, the third, from looking from the top and giving you these extra comments and putting all of that together, until you get to that perfect meeting, as we call it, as much as we can. So
exactly,
really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, Khalid. Good luck with your next meeting. I know you've got a few booked in now, so continue with it, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Nice one. Take care.
Yes, you take care.
Bye bye.
See ya. Bye bye.